Alright, so it was only a matter of time before I decided I was going to have to record part 3 of this, so I thought maybe I'd steal the opportunity to try to do it while I was here at Chucket's place. It might not be as long of a section this time because, well, it's getting a little dark, but yeah, it's just been sort of, it's been a thing to do these outside, so I figure why not. So when we last left off on this magical story, I had just started in the bakery at Pick and Save. This is May 1st or April 30th of 2001. Pretty sure it was April 30th, but I guess exact dates don't really matter. Is it raining? I think it's raining a little bit. Anyway, it's so nice out here. Yeah, when it comes to the bakery, there really aren't a lot of stories I can think to tell. It's like, as much as I complain about the place, really, it was just not the kind of place for a person like me. It was socially awkward and all. So I just kind of never really felt like I fit in there. Sometimes I can probably close this. Yeah. Like I said, I don't know, I just never really felt like I fit in there. It's like sometimes I would hear them talk about getting together to go grill out or something, and they would always, exchange notes on where everybody lived and everything, but like no one ever really said, Tim, you want to come along too or something, so it was always like, maybe they just didn't want me to, or maybe they thought that I didn't want to. I guess that's more what it was. They probably just thought I didn't want to. Because that's the kind of impression I always give off to people, I guess, so that happened a few times, but, and, back then I kind of took it personally, but I guess I really only chose to, I suppose, they say that whole thing about you can choose to react however you want, I guess. But at this point, I don't really know. But, I always waited around for the conversation to shift to music or movies or something that I was knowledgeable about. But it never seemed to do that, and just as many years as I worked in there, it just so rarely ever did that, because really there was only one other person in there at the time that was my age, but she was also extremely shy like I was. Plus, I guess you also have to consider that for the first 4 hours that I was there, I was by myself, and everybody else came in at 4 in the morning. You're not exactly going to be chatty Cathy coming into work at 4 in the morning. I totally get that. But, so there was that. Alright, get off that zoom in button. It's good. So, I try to hold this thing a little more still. So I'm not going to be walking around as much today, so. Anyway, that was, like I said, I was never. I would say I was never happy there, but I guess if I wasn't, I wouldn't have stayed there as long as I did. So, to be fair, there's a lot worse things I could have been doing. A lot worse ways I could have been spending my time. But, for the most part, it's not like anybody was ever straight up mean to me. Nobody ever said duh to me when I didn't know where to put something or whatever. It's like I learned the stuff and I got good at it, and then I got really good at it. And man, I can't tell you how many times my manager Sherry would say, how much she appreciated that I was there. And she'd always be telling people, Tim is the best donut fryer I've ever had, and it was just really cool to hear that. Well, when I first started there, we were still living on Apple Blossom at the time, and I remember this because I have sort of these weird memories just random weird memories. Because this was around the time that Banjo-Tooie actually came out. It's 2001. I didn't really talk about Banjo-Kazooie, the first game, because that game came out while we were still in Georgia. And once again, I was so out of the scene with video games that I didn't even know it existed until I just happened to go into Best Buy one day and I saw the game on display. And I played it for like 5 minutes and I was like, dude, I want this game. So I got it. I just picked it up on the spur of the moment. It was so nice that I've lived a life where I've just been able to do things like that, though, But anyway, so at the time when I actually bought the game, Banjo-Kazooie, it came with the soundtrack and a t-shirt, neither of which I still have because I'm stupid. It's moved so many times. But man, that soundtrack, I listened to the heck out of that. When I worked at Guardian Insurance for that 3 months, I had that soundtrack going almost all the time. and it was lovely. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. In fact, I never really listened to it until I got that job. Then I was like, well, I need some CDs, I need stuff to listen to, stuff that's not too distracting, stuff that doesn't have lyrics in it would be good. And that's when the idea came to me. I had that soundtrack, I put it on, and it was great. But man, I tell you. So back to 2001, we're living on Apple Blossom. One other random memory that just comes to mind. One day we were in there and I was playing Final Fantasy IX, and I was on that part of the game where you're cooking the supper, where Aiko's making the supper for Zidane or Zidane or whatever to try to impress him. On that same day, we, in the real life, in the house, were cooking a bunch of stuff. Like I was making some chicken and rice or whatever. And you have to know that, like, we are not like professional cooks at all. We made like TV dinners or hot dogs, hamburgers, very basic stuff. So for us to get together and like make chicken and rice or ham and cheese salad or whatever it was we were making that day, I don't know, just all I remember is that it was a big deal that we were cooking, and we happened to be doing that at the same time as this scene on Final Fantasy IX. So it was just kind of cool. I'll always think of that whenever I play that part of that game, or when I think of that part. So I'm sure I'll tell this story when I get there in the Final Fantasy IX streams. That is, assuming I get this video up before then. Holy cow. Then again, if this is a shorter one, maybe that will happen. Anyway. So when Banjo-Tooie came out, I was still like a beginner on the internet at the time. You know, Google was kind of just starting up. I mean, Google had probably been around for a long time before then, and I had just discovered it. But once I started using Google as my main search engine, I never really went back to anything else. And to be honest, what other search engine do you use? You know, Google it has become practically, you know, a saying. Like, Google has become a verb, because that's where you go. You want to know anything, you just go there. So, yeah. So I remember Googling around about that stinking ice key and thinking, ooh, is the ice key going to be in the new game? I don't know. And the new game is coming out. Yeah. One other thing I forgot to mention, actually, when I moved from Georgia to Wisconsin, I forgot to bring my Banjo-Kazooie cartridge with me. So I had this one whole big day where I went out to get the game again and buy it again, because it meant that much to me. I was like, I need to play this game again, and I wanted Dad to see it, because my dad is like a huge musician. He's really good at the guitar and everything, and I just knew he would love the intro to that game. And so, you know, so I couldn't wait for him to see the intro to that game, and it was so awesome watching it and watching his reaction to it for the first time. Because how often do you really see that in video games? This might be something I have to bring up in the fake sequelitis if I ever get around to it, you know? How many video games have there ever been where the characters actually put on a performance like that for you during the game? I mean, Mario, what does he do? He jumps around and says, woohoo! You know, he's crazy. Like, he never does anything besides that. It's like, I guess, you know, at the end of Mario 64, he twirls around and gives you a peace sign. But that's like the most unique thing that I think I've ever seen the man do. The man. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but man, I tell you. It's like, jeez. You know, and it's the same thing with Link, really. You know, he has that little fancy move he does in Twilight Princess, but what has he ever done that didn't involve a sword that actually looked cool? It's like, has he ever, like, danced, you know, with Zelda or anything? I mean, I don't know. It's like, jeez, man. I mean, it's such a huge deal when you get to Majora's Mask and he's doing all those flips and everything, and it's like, oh my god, he's doing stuff, he's doing body language. And, you know, like when he dances with the Kamaro's mask. That's crazy. You never see Link do something like that. That's too much personality for a character like him. Banjo-Kazooie, they're just putting on a performance willy-nilly, you know, because that's what these characters do. They're out to be entertaining, you know, they're funny, they're cool, they have personality, that's awesome. You know, it's like, why don't we demand more? Well, I don't know, though, that's the thing. It's a fourth wall mechanism, you know. If Mario and Link did something like that, they'd be breaking the fourth wall. So they can't, you know, they can't act like we exist. Or any of that. Speaking of which, I'm in there right now, I'm playing this game called, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, it's Baten Kaitos. And you guys will probably already know about that by the time this video comes up. But anyway, well, there's an interesting, like, fourth wall breaking mechanism in that game. It's really cool, I really like it. So eventually I got Banjo-Tooie, and I played it, and it was It was hard, let me tell you. It was a hard-ass game. Not gonna lie, that game gave me more frustration. And when I wrote my actual opinion, you know how I mentioned before that like all my reviews are online still under flamepillar.com at the Wayback? Well, one thing I didn't mention is if you go to that site, you might not see it at first, but there's a link that says click here to go to the music reviews. If you click there, it goes to the music reviews page, and if you go all the way to the bottom of that page, then that's where the link to my video game reviews are. And there's not very many of them, but one of them is Banjo-Tooie. And that review is basically, when I wrote that review, I did it in the form of a letter from Gruntilda. So it says all this stuff about, oh, well, Flamepillar, just so you know what's been keeping him so busy, he's having a tough time with this game. This game's way harder than the first one. You know, and I love watching his N64 struggle to keep up with the polygon count in Hailfire Peaks, and just, it was so cool. It was really fun writing that. But man, when I got to Grunty Industries, man, holy crap, like, I think it took me probably an hour just to figure out that you had to take the train in just to get into the level. Because I was wandering all over the place outside looking for ways in. I just couldn't find nothing. It was like, I was frustrated. Oh, that game was so hard. Eventually I did beat it, and it was good, and everything was cool. And I got the ice key, and I got the dragon, Kazooie, and all that stuff, and it was pretty awesome. But anyway, at some point in 2001, that's when Mary and Josh broke up. And there were some weird circumstances there. I'm not... Well, one of the things is that he decided... excuse me, good lord. Well, one of the things I think is because he was starting to get into, like, driving semis. I don't know if that was that soon, but... And he also had this girl in Pennsylvania that he was kind of flirting with online, and so I guess, in a way, that might have been part of it too, but... Either way, they were drifting apart, and Mary actually hooked up with another guy, Joe, and he ended up being the father of the 4 kids that she has now. And so we had some good times in there. I remember when I was playing Final Fantasy IX in my room, Joe was standing behind me, and this was when I didn't know who he was at all. So he was behind me, and he came up in the room, and he said one word. He said, 7. And I knew right away what he was talking about, and I was like, yes! Another video game lover. So I said, well, no, this is Final Fantasy IX, so he watched me for a little bit, and it was cool, but just, you know, just knowing that someone was, like, into what I was doing, it was cool. So, but the thing is that he always, like, he played more of these, like, I don't even know what you call them, just MMOs, like Diablo. He played a lot of Diablo 2 and Baldur's Gate. And eventually he got me into playing Magic the Gathering a little bit. There was another one called Mage Knight that we played that was really cool. The thing I remember about Mage Knight, though, was that if you got a Gravedigger in that game, it was so broken. Because all you had to do was set up your Gravedigger behind, like, 4 other guys so that they couldn't get to him. And then every time you lost a person, just use the Gravedigger to bring him back to life. So if you didn't get to that Gravedigger, you pretty much lost no matter what you did. So it was kind of... I don't know. But anyway, but yeah, but those are the kind of games he played, and he actually, like, kind of got me into it a little bit for a while. I remember playing Diablo 2. Well, it was just Diablo 2, but still, and Baldur's Gate a little bit. They were interesting, but really, I don't know. I never really got into them that much, though, because I didn't feel like there was enough story there to justify the time you'd put into it, you know. It was more all about just getting stronger yourself and numbers and everything. But I totally get the appeal of that too, though, based on the fact that nowadays I play all these incremental games, which I try not to do too much of. But yeah, but that's exactly right. So right around the 1st of 2002, Mary and Joe found a house they wanted to move into. And I was with them. I was living with them at the time. So I figured, well, I'll just come with you guys. I'll stay with you for a while. So we moved. We moved into a house up in Appleton on 2nd Street. And the house had an attic, and the attic was where I lived. I lived in the attic there from January of 2002 straight on through to May 1st of 2003. And that was where Lydia was born. Lydia, the oldest of her 4 kids. So that was kind of interesting. I remember coming downstairs one night, as I was on my way to work, or I had to leave for work. I came downstairs and Lydia was by herself on the couch, and I just kind of, you know, walked over to her because she was whimpering a little bit, and I just put my hand on her head and I got up real, like, in her face, you know, and I was all like, hey, Coochie, you know the things you do when you talk to babies. I'm not going to sit here and imitate it, but I still remember that night because it was the first time I ever saw her smile, was that night, and she just had this huge smile on her face. It was the most adorable thing ever. I couldn't believe it. It's like, man, oh man. She pretty much changed the way that I felt about babies. Well, I don't know. There's a part of me that still can't stand them, but you know, I came to understand a lot of things about them because of her, because of all the kids really, but mostly because of her. Well, her and Jasmine both, really. It's like, I used to think that, you know, that just because you don't remember anything from your baby years, that means it doesn't matter what happens to you then. Because I used to say these horrible things like, oh, you could have left me by a dumpster and it wouldn't matter because I wouldn't remember it anyway. Yeah, but the thing is, just because you don't remember it doesn't mean you're not aware of what's going on. So I can't remember every single thing that happened in my life right now, but I'm sure I was aware of the stuff when it was happening. I can't go off and name those memories one by one, but I was aware of what was going on when it was happening. So just because you don't have a memory of it doesn't mean you automatically just weren't there to experience it. And that's the point where I failed to make the connection. And because of seeing Lydia smile that night, it's like I realized there was something there. She may not ever remember that, and that's fine, but you know what? It still happened. And that's what's important. You know, and those memories, those experiences, they make you who you are when you get older in life. And I just kind of wish I'd realized that sooner, I guess. I mean, I never did anything that I regretted because of that attitude. It's just having the attitude in general it just wasn't nice, you know. I don't know. It doesn't really mean, it didn't affect anything or anybody, but maybe it affected me, I don't know. I was just too cynical, but whatever. So I'm just walking in circles here, man, I tell you. Anyway. So let's see. So we went on, I was still working in the bakery, and eventually, oh no, I missed the most important part. Okay, I missed a big thing. Alright, right around November of 2001, just before we made the move, here's the thing, that's something I haven't told you yet in these videos, and most of you already know this, but I didn't take the best care of my teeth growing up, okay? I try to put this as lightly as possible, but basically it got to a point where they just weren't there anymore. They were gone. Like, they didn't fall out, but, you know, they just kind of, you know, they rotted away, basically. You know, I didn't want to have to say the word rot, but, because that's disgusting, and I don't want to put that image in people's minds, but whatever. And for a long time, you know, even towards the end of '98, I started to feel these intense pains in the back of my mouth. But the thing is, by the time I got around to the middle of 1999, those pains had stopped. They went away. So I think what was happening there, actually, because I was about 21 years old when that happened, I think that was my wisdom teeth coming in. But I never went to a dentist and got them pulled, so I guess they just grew in, and then they started pushing other teeth out of the way, and that was why it hurt so bad. So eventually my teeth were so deformed that, like, I literally couldn't smile, I couldn't look at people. I mean, I couldn't look at them anyway before, but having the wrecked teeth definitely didn't help that situation. Is that a cat down there? There's a cat down there. I don't know what he's doing. Let me see if I can zoom in on him. Oh, because you probably can't see him, but he's right there. Yeah, that's a cat. What he's doing out there? Should go say hi. Kitty, kitty. Sorry about the shaky camera. I can't really hold it. Anyway, so it was right around November 2001 that I realized I snapped. I'd had enough. There's this moment on a tape where I got on this rant and I started saying, I'm tired of being a fuck. That's what I was saying. I was just over and over again, I was saying, I'm tired of being a fuck. There's like, I should put that moment in here somewhere, because I just copied that tape not that long ago.
Life into my own hands. I called the dentist. You can kiss my ass, you know. I'm not living the life of a fuck anymore. I'm not going to be a fuck anymore. So there you go. I'm going to be looking through them classify. I'm telling you, I'm not going to find anything, though. Every time I get all excited and everything, I realize the truth, the eventual, inevitable truth that my life is based on not what I choose, but what options are available to me. And I'm going to realize suddenly that I don't have as many options as I was hoping for. And then I'm just going to accept that I have to live with what I got, you know, and go on working 7 days a week. But let me tell you something, when Mom comes down here, she's not going to see the same fuck that she used to. She's not going to have a fuck for a son anymore. She's going to have Timothy Bishop. She's going to have fucking Flame Pillar. And I'm telling you, I'm going to do something. Because I have had it. I have had it with being a fuck. The mood I'm in right now, I am so pumped up right now emotionally, I am just ready to totally fly. I mean, I'm ready. So you can listen to me Wednesday night and see what kind of future I've got for myself, and you know and I don't. So that's the advantage that you have over me. Or maybe that's the advantage that I have over you, not knowing. You know, because you know that what's in there is probably nothing, but I don't care, you know. It's just for a moment I had a hope of living a normal life again, of being a normal person, of not being a fuck.
It's nowhere near as shocking as it used to be. I remember when I heard it before, but yeah. So I went on to like later on when I made this jealous guy video. I remember making an allusion to that, saying I had these nasty thoughts in my head, but somebody misinterpreted that and thought I meant nasty thoughts as in like sexual or something, and they went out straight out and brought out the accusations. I'm like, dude, that's not what I meant by nasty thoughts. What I meant by nasty thoughts was when I was riding in the car that morning calling myself a fuck over and over again because of my teeth. Because I was just a piece of trash of a human being who couldn't look people in the eyes, and there was no point. Well, I want to say I go back to this no point thing, but you know, it's like there was no way I was ever going to be able to communicate with anybody or kiss a girl. So, I mean, forget about that. Oh my God. No girl would have ever wanted to be near me again. I mean, I think they could already tell, because all you had to do was watch me talk a little bit, or even watch me accidentally smile without, and forget to cover up my mouth as I'm smiling, you know. Because every time I smile, I'd always like look down, look to the side, or cover up my mouth with my hand. I'd always do that. It was just I still do it now. It's just like, it's an instinct because of that. It's just so deeply ingrained. Well, that morning, I decided I'd had enough. I had saved up some money. I had about $1,000 in the bank, and I thought, well, I'm going to figure out how to fix this. So I looked online, I found out about how much it was, and I called the dentist, and I set up an appointment. Well, wait a minute, when did I actually do that? Okay, I didn't do that until we moved into the new house, I think. Because I remember the appointment was in January of 2002. Yes, it was. So that was after we moved into the house. So I'd made up my mind to do it in November, but the actual appointment to get it done wasn't until January. I might have called the dentist in November and we set up the appointment in January. I'm not sure. So I went to the bank and I took out a loan for the remaining amount, basically $5,000. And I'm lucky that it was only that much, you know, because people get this insurance for stuff so they don't have to pay for it. But I didn't have insurance. You know, I could have had insurance through my work, but to this day, I'm not actually sure even if I did. I should have looked into that, I guess, but, well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I didn't have insurance, though. Because I wanted to wait till I quit smoking or whatever it was, I don't know. So it came around to January, and I was prepared. I mean, I bought a PlayStation 2 and I got Final Fantasy X. And so it's funny how I seem to have stories revolving around every single Final Fantasy game. You know, 4, 6. Well, I didn't talk about 4 that much. It was because Dad got me Mystic Quest, and then I played 4. So anyway, back to this. We need to stay in the present time here. So I got the PlayStation and Final Fantasy X, and I didn't actually play it yet. I had it set up, but I thought, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play it after I get home from the dentist, just start it up. So I went to the dentist. I had Joe actually drove me up there, because I was told, you know, I was going to need somebody to drive me home. So, and I have very vivid memories of this, of Joe driving me up there, and the dentist. And I remember Joe saying to me, "Signing away your mouth." I'm like, yeah, I'm signing away my mouth. I wasn't losing anything, I'll tell you that, except for the money. So I signed away my mouth, and went back into the room and got in the chair. The chair, man, let me tell you, that dentist chair. And I knew, I mean, man, I could, it's weird because I want to say that I was nervous as hell, but I don't think I really was. Like, I don't know, maybe he just set my mind at ease so well or something, but I don't know. I don't know how it happened, but I got in there and I sat down, and the thing is, I just kept telling myself, you know, I don't have a choice here. You know, it's not like I can just get up and run out of the room. You know, you would basically sign the contract, you'd given him the money. You had made up your mind months ago that you were going to do this. You know, what were you going to do? Just go back to living your life and spend the rest of your life worrying about it? Worrying about, you know, dying at an early age because you got infected in there or something? After you'd been told so many times that that could happen? It's like, no, I needed this. This had to be done. It wasn't a choice anymore. So, you know, I had to keep telling myself that as far, you know, that it was going to be hell. It was probably going to hurt like hell. But I didn't have a choice. I had to deal with it. I just had to do it. So I got in the chair. I don't remember, like, I remember the Corrs Breathless came on the stereo in there, the Muzak. And I remember thinking to myself, geez, Pick and Save Muzak would never play this. It's too upbeat for Pick and Save Muzak. Because I hated the Muzak at Pick and Save. I have an entire article about the Muzak at Pick and Save. And it's in my reviews. It's called Muzak Sucks. It's in the music reviews. Man, it goes on forever talking about, like, all these different things. And I'm still convinced, even now, that if not for that article, they never would have changed it. Like, I don't know, probably because somebody who works there found it is what happened. I don't know. But anyway, get back to that later. They're going to the airport, by the way, to get Tom Fox. So I just stayed here to steal this opportunity to do this. So anyway, I sat in the dentist chair and I just closed my eyes and I prayed to God, give me the strength to get through this. Because that's all I got left now is my own strength. And that's all I can depend on anymore. So he went in. So basically they pulled my left arm up so that it was like level with my head. So I was already leaning, basically reclining, so that my body was like 30 degrees to the ground or something. I always say that, but I don't know if people know what I mean. Like, basically the ground, like here, okay, if this is the ground, my body was like that. Right there, okay. Now I had my left arm like this, okay. My left arm was up here. They had a needle stuck in the elbow there. That needle stayed there through the entire procedure. And basically, can you even see me? I don't know. It's getting pretty dark out here. I need to wrap this up pretty soon because I wanted this to be pretty short. I felt the numbness almost instantaneously. Like, all of a sudden, I didn't feel anything down there. Down around my mouth area, going into my neck. It was all just like, yeah, you know, it's impossible to describe, really. So he started going to work in there, and I just closed my eyes and waited. And it wasn't like I expected that he was just going to yank the teeth out in one piece. But as far as I can tell, I think what he was doing actually was chipping them off piece by piece. Because a lot of times I would feel something break in there, like something would break, like a rock or something. And I could feel all these vibrations, but I couldn't actually feel any pain. Thank freaking Christ I couldn't feel any pain. So this went on. It must have lasted. I was fully conscious the whole time. That's the other thing. I was really hoping maybe they could just put me under and do the whole thing, but I don't know. But anyway, I was fully conscious, and I could feel every yank, every pull, every break, every chip of tooth that came off. And I couldn't even begin to describe it to you now. But it was insane. Because I just thought to myself, I don't know what I was thinking for that time. I was just waiting, is all I could do. I was just waiting. Finally, it was over. So, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes maybe. And they sewed my mouth up. And they stuck gauze in my mouth. And told me to bite down on it. And then they gave me more gauze to put in there once that gauze got too bloody. And let me tell you, when I would take that gauze out of my mouth, it would just be soaked in blood. I'm talking, this had to be at least, I don't know, a half a cup maybe. And I just put more gauze in there, pull it out, there's another quarter of a cup there. And this went on all the way home. As Joe drove me home, bless his heart, he drove me home. I would have been fine to drive myself, I think, because I was still lucid. I still didn't feel any pain. But he did he gave me a prescription to pick some up on the way home, and I remember going and doing that, and then taking that out to the car and driving the rest of the way home. I came home, and I sat down, and I played Final Fantasy X for the first time, and there was something about that game that just, like, instantly, like, right now, I would call Final Fantasy X one of my top 5 games of all time. It was absolutely beautiful. It started off, I wasn't sure because it was really cryptic at the beginning. Like, Auron was fascinating, sure, and Tidus was whatever he was. But it was that moment when I woke up in the sea and the camera zoomed out and I could see a little piece of an island in the lower right corner, and I was like, this is gorgeous, what is this? I zoomed back in and there was a blitzball. Tidus started talking to Wakka. And I felt like Tidus in that moment. I was lost, but I was finally home. I know that doesn't matter. You could say that just about anything, though. That's really stretching it, but, man. But when Wakka said, you want to try that move one more time, and Tidus just does this, you know. It's like, that's how I felt. I was like, I did it. I made it. I'm here. And would you may not believe me when I tell you this, but I'm telling you, and this is the truth, I never had to take any of that pain medication that I got for me. That prescription medication for the pain, I didn't take one pill of it because I never felt any pain. It stayed numb for, I want to say, like for maybe 2 days. I continued to feel this weird tingly numbness down there, but it never got to the point where it actually hurt. Now, I couldn't drink Coke, I couldn't smoke, couldn't eat hardly, but man, after a while, I took the gauze out, and, you know, well, like I said, I took the gauze out a lot sooner, but still, and then, you know, I still have the papers of that, too, the paperwork that came with that, and so there's little blood stains on it. I still have those papers that I took home with me that day, and they have little blood stains on them. It's kind of hilarious. I should take a shot of those to show that to you, too. But anyway, man, Dr. McFarlane, he works in Neenah, Wisconsin. He did a great job, though. So they scheduled me to come back at I don't know, what was it, like 2 weeks later to have the stitches pulled. And when I went in to do that, I was expecting it to be really easy. But then he sat me down, he put the numb medication on me, and went in there and started chipping away more teeth. And I was like, well, oh God, what is he doing? Because I didn't expect this. Like, the second trip was a lot worse than the first one because I wasn't expecting it at all. The second trip, I would almost say, was at least 75% as bad as the first one. And I know it's because I wasn't expecting it, but man, I was not expecting that at all. And, well, anyway, it still didn't hurt. I put more gauze in my mouth. I still didn't have to take any pain medication. I came home, we recovered, and for the next 2 months after that, I ate nothing but mashed potatoes. I developed an affinity for mashed potatoes that to this day, like, I went through this routine because, oh, here's the other thing. I went back and started working at Motomart again at some point in there. Because after I took out that loan at the bank, I actually bought a car. I got my own car from Josh's mom. I actually bought a car from her. So once I had my own car, I went straight back to Motomart and said, hey, can you hire me back? And he's like, yeah. So I started working at Motomart again. So basically, I was working 7 days a week at this point, starting at the end of 2001 about. And, yeah. So the bakery knew, you know, they had to schedule me the same days every week because I worked at Motomart on Monday and Wednesday. So I had to work all the other days in the bakery, so work 7 days a week. But that's what I was going to have to do to get this loan paid off. I wanted to get it paid off as soon as possible so I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. And that's what I did. So it took me a while, but I did do it. We'll get to that eventually. Well, in case I forget to tell you, it took me until August of 2003 to actually pay it off. And I worked 7 days a week that whole time. I probably had, I think, 20 days off in total between the January 1st of 2002 and August of 2003. So I averaged right around 1 day off a month during that period. So I mean, I'll tell you what, $5,000 loan, pay that off in 1 year and 8 months, that's not bad. Especially considering what the wages I was making at the time. Which I guess the wages aren't too bad. Motomart was started me at $8.40 an hour. Pick and Save started me at $8. So, I mean, that was good. That was good money, man. Anyway. But yeah, so, eventually I went and got the dentures. That wasn't until April, so it was actually 3 months. Oh, I was saying, I developed this affinity for mashed potatoes. I got into this routine where when I would work at Motomart at night, they had like this hot water dispenser that would dispense really, really hot water. So I would dispense it into a cup, like a drinking cup. I would add mashed potatoes and stir it until it was about as thick as, I guess, a really melted milkshake. I don't know. It was not as thick as a milkshake, but it was pretty close. It was still basically drinkable. And then I would add like a little pat of butter in there, let it melt, add some salt. And every single night at Motomart, I had these cups of mashed potatoes. I drank mashed potatoes. And I started to love it. And ever since then, I've always loved making really, really creamy mashed potatoes and drinking it like soup. That's what it was, basically. It was like soup. It's like potato soup or something, I don't know. Whatever it was, though, I grew to love it immensely. And ever since then, I've always liked my mashed potatoes. Well, I mean, I like them anyway, but any way you make them, I'm going to eat them. But still, I will still always have a certain love for those soupy mashed potatoes, where you get little, pools of butter in it in certain parts. Oh, it's just so good. Anyway, it's getting up to like 18:31 here. It's the second of 20-minute segments. I think I might have to cliffhang this again because it's getting really dark and just I want to get back to baiting Kaidos and all this shit, man. So yeah, finally in April 2002, 3 months later, I went in and I got the dentures. At the time, there was a Best Buy in Appleton. It was down over by, I don't know what the road is called. It's over by Casa Loma. It's not there anymore. But there was a building next to it that is still there, and it looks mostly like a bank. But for some reason, there was like a dentist working in there. I remember going in, getting on the elevator, going to the 3rd floor, and him putting in the silly putty. It felt like silly putty. He put it in my mouth to get the shape of my gums, and then he, like a week later, was able to make the dentures, which I still have with me now. They've lasted me this long. These same dentures now for 13 years, 14 years, and I still use them, and I still can see my name typed in the certain font, on the bottom ones. It's crazy. So yeah, I got my teeth. I think we've advanced a year and 4 months in the story here. This may go on to be like 10 parts. I don't know, guys, but I gotta stop here. I'm sorry, but I have to. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all the interest you guys have shown in this. It means a great deal to me. So, stick around and we'll get on to part 4 here. See you guys later.